Okay, so we're back.
We're back.
For us, we're back because we're filming a couple episodes. This episode is, well, first of all, we are get real
Yeah.
with Amy.
And Christina.
Yes. Hi, guys.
Hey.
So we are two local Grand Valley real estate agents. We're both individual salespeople with different brokerages. But we have chose collaboration and community.
Instead of competition.
Yeah, instead of competition. Yeah. So we didn't coin that phrase, like community over competition. Then I first heard it with the Hustle Humbly ladies. It's a real estate podcast, which I really enjoy.
They say it perfectly.
Yeah. So. Yeah. They have it's their tagline. So we're not trying to take that. It is their tagline, but they say community over competition.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is something that I really appreciate. And we said, when we first chatted about this, we said collaboration and community together over competing. So yes, that's where that came from. So this episode, we wanted to talk about, so this podcast isn't, if a realtor's on here and wants to listen, fine, great. But it's mainly for, our intent with making them is for
education purposes.
Yes, yeah. And to hear us chat a little bit. And, obviously our family and friends probably will be the main supporters at the beginning. But we're hoping that more people, if you want to hear a little bit about real estate, small town living, mom life.
Real life.
Yes, real. Get hashtag with my fingers. You do for the podcast listeners. That's a bit bumbly. Hashtag
get real.
Get real. We thought we were very punny with that. I thought it was great because real, it's real life. And Christine and I are if you see it, if you're listening on via podcast, we're in
sweats, tights.
Yes, regular clothes.
Hair mess.
This is from a local a girl that does t-shirts.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and it says vintage 1980 limited edition t-shirt.
Perfect.
Yes. So this is just how we roll. You see us like this in the community, whether we're at the arena or getting groceries around town. So we wanted to just make sure that we carried that through into the podcast.
Yep.
And also who has time. I don't have time to do a full glamour
shot
time before this.
No time. It's tempting.
We did talk about doing a glamour shot at, and so there's an upcoming event that has
Hockey Day.
Yes, a little photo booth. So I said to Christine, we maybe pop in there to do some branding pictures. I'll do like that. So this episode we wanted to talk about, I get this a lot, and I am a passionate supporter and advocate of, for the podcast listeners, my finger was up because it's important, local agents. So we're real estate agents, obviously, and we said different brokerages. We're both based in Grand Valley, and there's a bit of a shift in real estate right now. I shouldn't say right now, it's been the past few years. The barrier to entry of being a real estate agent is quite low, in my opinion, right now. And it's gotten a little bit more harder, I feel like, but in a different way. So before, years ago, you had to go in person to do courses. Then it was kind of hybrid when I was doing it, that I could do my courses online, but I had to go take exams in person.
Right.
And then it became fully during the pandemic. They switched it all.
That's how it was for me.
Everything was virtual. They were switching it before the pandemic to Humber College.
So I graduated with Humber.
Okay, so I graduated with
AREA.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, it's Ontario Real Estate Association. I should know that's not association. So I graduated from them, and then I graduated before they switched it over to Humber, and then Humber College, which is a local, a college in Ontario, provides the schooling now for it.
Yep.
And did you have to do your exams online?
So no, mine was the COVID era, so everything was virtual. So yeah.
Amy, no.
Yeah.
No, but yes.
Everything was online, yes.
So now I'm seeing that a lot of agents like the Proctor Track or whatever.
Oh, that was a nightmare.
Okay, so I hear this from a lot of agents. So now I think they brought it back that you can go in and do them in person. But then they do them online as well too, and I've heard a lot of agents say like, "I wasted 5 hours of my time."
It's a nightmare.
Yes,
because you have a time, and if you don't get on by that time, you only have 2 hours or whatever.
And the room has to. They've gotten really picky. With
I had
the
to
room.
write, and I couldn't anywhere in here. I had to go in the basement, and my basement's unfinished, and I had to put a fold-out table with nothing around me. They had to be able to see everything.
Yeah.
I had to scan my environment. I couldn't even have like a blank piece of paper. I think actually you can have a blank piece of paper, but I didn't want to risk it.
That would be stressful.
Yeah.
I don't know, because like when I went and wrote in person, I was able to have
exactly
like a piece of blank paper, and I was able to write.
And I like the idea of doing the course online because I'm a very focused person, and I like
really
to,
like
just get it done.
Family,
and I have to do it when my kids are sleeping or when my husband's home or whatever the case may be. But so I like to do that on my own time and at my own pace. I like that aspect, but the writing online was like
I heard it was
nightmare.
Yes,
I would never like. It's stressful as it is to write an exam, and then to have to do it online and with all these.
Well, and you just timing wise, it just ended up working out that you were doing it around that time. But I find, did you find this too? Like, we normally get every year an influx of agents. That just happens naturally. But I think there was, once they removed that you could do it. You didn't have to do it in person and more online. I think there was a bigger influx.
Probably because it's more visible for it's accessible, right?
Yeah. And then I think they leveled up one more. We got an even more massive influx because of what people were seeing during the pandemic. So they were seeing you put the house up, it sells in 2 days, like the minimal amount of work. So I do think...
I didn't get that. I wasn't on time for that era. I came in just after.
Yes. So I had, I came in just before, but I had I think almost a year and a half, maybe 2 years of like the old school.
Balanced market?
Yes. I call it old school, but meaning in my head that it was just a little bit more
work. Like
you had to put in a lot more work. My first year I had 2 transactions.
Yeah.
And I put in a lot of work for those transactions, and it was 2 transactions, and the process was a lot longer to get the house sold, or on the other end,
right? There was conditions,
yes, multiple conditions. Whereas then it led into a very crazy market, and I think so. Now we're dealing with what I'm seeing is we've got a lot of agents now.
Yes.
There is a statistic out there that I think it's like 80. No, I think it's maybe 80%. I don't know for sure. We can
quit within the first 2 or 5 years it is.
And even though there's a ton of agents, there's only ones that are like a small percentage that do more than 2 transactions per year.
Yes, yeah. I saw that the other day. Maybe if I can find it, we can link it.
Yes,
but it says I saw it exactly like. Breaks down the amount of transactions and how many agents actually do that within the year.
Well, and so you're seeing when we're talking about local, so bringing that into more local, in Grand Valley, so since I've been living here, which is, I don't know, like 12 years, but my husband was born and raised here, there was kind of 2 main agents that serviced the town. Now, the population was a lot less. So
right, of course.
Like, back in that time, I'm referencing maybe 1,500 for the total population of Grand Valley. And I mean, there was outside agents too that like maybe didn't live right in town, but were servicing the area.
Yeah,
but I would say maybe 2 to 4 agents that were servicing that amount of people. For reference now, in comparison, we are, Christina and I just did a quick count of the agents that we know about that either live here and work focus their business on this area. And around Dufferin County, or maybe they are agents but work in kind of a different area. And am I missing something there? Agents that
used to live here and then
are
still servicing.
They live outside the area but still focus their business or working with their clients in this area. We counted 15, including us.
And likely we're probably missing
probably I would say it's closer to 18 probably have ones that maybe we don't know about, or are agents but are part-time agents and we haven't seen them put up a listing or do any advertising. So Yeah, because I forgot about one. So 16.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So that now our population is, let's say, 3,500
around there.
Yeah. That's a lot of agents for a small area. Now, again, I would pare that down to, let's say, half that are actually trying to work and focus in this area. Some live here but don't seem to focus their business at all on this area or do something else. Maybe they have their license for a different reason. But that's a lot. And it can get a bit... I run the Grand Valley Small Business Group. Christine's a part of that too. I felt like a need for something in Grand Valley so that businesses could connect with small businesses, could connect, because it gets, on one hand, lonely, but also sometimes weirdly competitive. And not just in our industry, like
in every industry for sure.
Yeah. But I find sometimes in a small town that has seen a massive increase in population, this is just what I'm finding, that it kind of, instead of having kind of your main businesses that are the, what's the word I'm thinking of? Like the cornerstones of the community, right? Like they're the ones that everybody goes to. It then has diluted that, and people are competing, which I don't think competition is necessarily a bad thing. No. But I think it's the way it's done can be good or bad. Right. So I have seen some businesses that do something really well, and somebody comes in and is advertising and doing the exact same thing that they're doing. Right. And that feels weird to me in a small community. Right. Like, and as a consumer in a small community, that feels weird to me.
Well, and then it's like, well, who do I buy from? Who do I choose? Why do I have to choose? Why can't I just
allegiance, right? Yeah. So let's use something that isn't specific, because I don't want to. But as an example, let's say somebody sells tomatoes. Yeah. So somebody grows their tomatoes, they sell their tomatoes, and they're amazing tomatoes. And I'm not referencing anybody personal because I don't really know anybody that sells tomatoes. Yeah. So they do a great job of it. They are present in the community. They're giving back to the community. They have a great price point and a great product. Right. If you really love tomatoes and you want to start a business with tomatoes, to me, I would first go approach that person and have a conversation and say, hey,
how can we coexist?
Is there a way that I can coexist? I really love tomatoes. I've been passionate about tomatoes. How is there a way that we can coexist? Right. And if that person, and I would understand if they were like, well,
I want to be the only tomato lady.
I have worked really hard to be the only tomato lady. You don't see behind them person. You don't see behind the scenes of all the stuff that I have done to be this person. And you do you, but it would be tough if that was a competing, because then I might have to raise my prices or change the product or not off. Right. Like, and we've seen some businesses go out that were great businesses because they saturated, other businesses copied what they did. I shouldn't say copy, right, but did the same thing and then diluted the market to where somebody couldn't do it anymore.
Right. And often with this, like the small town, small businesses, like we rely on each other.
That's right. We work together. We, for the most part, rely on each other. And unless you're a total commerce business that's not focused on the area, if you're providing the same thing that somebody else is already providing, it dilutes your market, right? It dilutes your consumers, and it makes it difficult for that person to survive. So what I would like to see, and we talk about this in the small business group, but if you like go approach the person and then, but also see if you could do something a bit different. So you really love tomatoes. How about doing a salsa?
Using your tomatoes, but make something else
that person doesn't offer. Yeah. And then you're the salsa person in town, you know, like, and as long as you...
And everyone loves a good salsa.
I do. I love a good salsa, and we don't, like, Layman's, that is local, they do a great, like, chutney, and they do some salsas too. Yeah. So again, we're not referencing just specific businesses, but I feel like...
When you talk about salsa, you kind of have to throw in the small business. Who makes that?
But using that reference to... that example to do something else that still fits. If you love tomatoes, you could do something else that doesn't exactly replicate what they're doing. Right. Because they did probably a lot of work establishing themselves, establishing a name for like Get Local Tomatoes, and then you coming in and doing the exact same thing. I think there's room for everybody, but in a small community, there's a way to, I think, do things that spread it out in a way that is accessible for everyone.
For everyone, yeah.
So, getting back to agents, real estate, I went off on a tangent.
That's okay. But no, it's good to touch on like that small business aspect of, because we don't want our businesses to go under. We want our businesses to succeed. We want to see our economy grow. We want to see all that. We want to see the giving back to the community.
Well, so that's a big thing. So local agents here, there's some that I feel like are invested in the community and focusing their business here, and then some that aren't, which is fair enough, and that's
to each their own.
It's good actually, because a bunch of us doing the same thing at the same time, again, it dilutes the market a bit. But I feel like, so in the past few weeks especially, I've gotten a few people that have reached out to me, and this has happened over my career, but more so, I've worked incredibly hard and spent a lot of my hours volunteering in the community.
Yep.
Let's say, like, I do council notes. Do I want to spend 2 hours? Like the last one was on Valentine's Day, that council meeting. Did I want to spend 2 hours?
Your husband had like an amazing night planned for you, but you had to go to this meeting instead.
Like I went to the council meeting because I knew that some people really counted on
needed
my notes. Yes. And so I feel like with that though, I put in work so that people know my name synonymously with Grand Valley.
Right.
And being in the know in Grand Valley. And I think a lot of local agents in other places do the same thing. Like I can think of Orangeville and think of a few agents that I know are really invested in Orangeville. So, same thing in Shelburne, Dundalk, whatever.
Right.
So it seems to be, and I see this locally too, with people listing with other people, which is your choice to work with whoever you want to work with, but you need to be well informed of there's kind of like a background of real estate, the behind the scenes part that people don't realize. Like, you're not there for every conversation and every interaction your agent is having with another agent. So they could be asking about the bylaws. They could be asking about the fire pit.
Oh, there's so many times where I have a listing and they're like, what are the comps like?
Yeah. So a buyer's agent, when we have a listing in Grand Valley, then approaching us and asking,
do your research.
Christina is saying, yes, what are the sold comparable properties in the area?
Mm-hmm. Which I have no problem presenting.
But I feel like, though, they should know that.
Yeah, because we know that.
Yes. And I have had it, and when I was a newer agent, so Grand Valley is just on the border of another board. We're a couple of boards for like the Realtor MLS system.
Yes.
So we're the GTA board, I call it, like TREB. Goes up to Grand Valley, and then west and north of Grand Valley is a different board. And there's multiple different boards that have joined with that interface that then I can access. So like me being part of two boards, I can access Peterborough listings.
Right. You can also put your listings on multiple boards, right? So
there's some agents, let's say from that board, that will reach out to you when you have, they're not part of the board that your listing is on, and say, can I get some sold comparables for that property? But even then, and this is my personal opinion, and my fingers up for the podcast listeners, I feel strongly that unless that agent is an expert in that area, and has full access to that area on their realtor board, in terms of like even physically being in that area, I personally would not use that agent if they don't do those things. If they have to ask the listing agent a lot about the area, I feel like that's probably not a great fit for somebody that's helping represent you and get these answers for you about an area you're not familiar with either. Or on the opposite side, a listing agent that is listing a home in an area they're not familiar with at all, because those questions do come in. They come in from prospective buyers that aren't represented. And then they also come in for, like, so if somebody came to me on one of my listings that wasn't represented, And I didn't feel that I wanted to represent both my client, who is the seller, and the buyer.
Yep.
I would call Christina and be like, hey, I have somebody that's potentially interested in looking at the house. Would you talk to them and vet them to make sure that they are actually a serious buyer?
Yep.
And do her due diligence to then bring them into the house. That's another local agent that I would be looking to, that I don't get any kickback in terms of like, she's not part of my brokerage, she's a separate brokerage, but she's representing the buyer in a way that I know they'll be well informed about the community. So if they say, you know, I want to park my car across the bottom piece of my driveway and the sidewalks in between,
right? Christina
can then tell them, nope, at your own risk, because technically our bylaws don't allow that unless you have, there's a certain setback around there, and unless you have a motorcycle or a very, very small car.
I wouldn't fit in it.
Yes. So if you do it as at your own risk, and it's not technically counted in Grand Valley, but it's different in Orangeville, but in Grand Valley, that's not technically counted as a parking spot.
Right.
So I know
it's minor things like that could be like a make or break for someone too, right?
And that's part of due diligence too. Like, I remember there was one listing a while ago, a few years ago, they kept tooting about this fireplace, a fire pit in the backyard in Grand Valley, a house in Grand Valley that had this big fire pit, and it was a lovely fire pit. And they put it right in this agent from out of town put it right in the listing about this big fire, blah, 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 blah. Me as a local agent right away that goes to the council meetings, and, you know, it's my business to know what goes on in terms of what's allowed, bylaws.
Bylaws, for sure.
We weren't allowed fire pits back then. And now we are with the permit.
Right.
But back then, you were not allowed a fire pit. So if you as...
So the selling feature...
you couldn't even use it legally.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, illegally, I guess you could. But if that was a big issue for that buyer, that listing agent and the seller could have gotten in trouble there, because the seller technically approves what goes out and what the listing agent puts out. And if that was on there and that person bought that house specifically because of that beautiful fire pit, they just loved it, and they couldn't enjoy that because maybe they were getting tickets and getting fined, like, that could have become a huge issue. So I recognize that maybe you have an aunt that's in real estate, or a good friend that, let's say you lived in the city that you worked with for years, that you built up a great relationship with. I get that. But are they able to provide the same services and the same information that a local agent would be able to provide? If not, I would at minimum recommend that they potentially co-list with a local agent, or you make the decision that, you know, potentially there's going to be some things that pop up that your agent is not going to know about. And it's the same thing. I'm not saying that
you know everything either. Yeah.
I wouldn't, right now in my business, I would not be putting a listing up in Toronto. I absolutely would not be.
Right.
I'm not saying that that's not for other agents. If they feel that they're an expert in that area, they feel very comfortable in that area. Maybe they have a house in the city and a house in the country, and they go back and forth, and they're that's great. For me personally, I don't go down to Toronto except for to catch a show occasionally, or, you know, go out for a meal or a game or something. I don't know enough about that market, and I have referred or told clients that if they already had an agent that they were very comfortable with, and they were selling a property there, I'll take care of you over here, they take care of you over there.
Yeah, whereas I'm a little bit different, because I think I grew up in the GTA. I grew up in Peel. So like, it's like, I know it like the back of my hand.
Yes.
So there's a lot, a lot of things in like, I maybe wouldn't go to like downtown Toronto or like Liberty Village, those areas, because I'm not as familiar with them.
Yeah.
But there are, like, if you hire me to be your agent, I'm going to be damned if I don't know everything about your property, everything about your surrounding. But that's me. But there are tons of agents who just take a listing to take a listing.
That's right.
Right? And I think that's what you're getting at. Like,
yes, that don't.
And you're not that person.
Before
100%.
I feel like they want the commission over what is best for the client.
For sure.
And I agree with you. I think if you know the area and you feel comfortable in that area, then you bring a lot of value when you already have a personal relationship with the person and you can represent them effectively in that area. But the other consideration too, and I'm sure you like review this before you go into it, is you will say probably like to yourself, do I want to do that drive? How much am I going to have to be there to be present? Right. So that's a consideration for the agent too. And I've heard this feedback from other people.
Yeah. Imagine listening in downtown Toronto, like driving 2 hours a day.
And there's like cottage country too. You got to watch it. There's a lot of shoreline issues. Did you see that one about, there was an article about the people that bought on Lake Huron, and it's the whole, like,
they can't access their property now?
Yeah, it's like erosion. So like they can't even use their property because the shoreline has eroded and it's unsafe now. Right. And I can't remember. I felt like I read that it wasn't a local agent, or maybe it was actually.
I don't remember the specifics about it. Yeah, I do remember that.
A local agent there, or somebody that was an expert in shoreline, so that they could have helped.
Unless it's like a super cookie cutter purchase, like
and that's your agent. Like those are, but I feel like the main thing is those are conversations you need to have with your agent before you proceed. Right? Before you sign them up.
And interview multiple agents. There's nothing wrong with that.
So you don't, like, I have said to people too, like, I don't mind. Oh, hold on one second. My battery.
Low powder.
Okay. There we go. I don't mind. Oh, and we are already 26 minutes in.
We need a wrapper. We need a wrapper up.
I don't mind at all if somebody wants to. I think it's actually part of your due diligence to interview multiple agents. I think you should ask me questions that, like, write down a list of questions. I'll provide some answers for you that we can chat about to say, like, whoa, you need to this is a big decision for you, and be fully informed before you go ahead with that.
And it's like, no offense, there's like personalities work with different personalities. Yes. And we have so many local agents. Like, why are you not interviewing 2 or 3? Unless you already know, like, you know, I know Amy Steele and I know Amy Steele way. And, you know,
you feel, but, and also though assessing, like, is it the market that I'm in? So I have a couple of clients that I work with that are outside of this area that I service, like Dufferin County, Grand Valley. But I know that they are experts in their area. Right. So they know the bylaws. They know, so I'm handling more of the real estate transaction.
I have a buyer like that and a seller. They're like, They know everything about everything.
Experienced homeowners, and they know and they do their due diligence. So they make sure they have conditions in there that they...
But they just need help with that.
Yeah, the transaction piece, and they trust me, and they know that I'm going to have their back 100%. So I do have a couple of like that, and I think there are some that just happens. Yeah. That you have a strong relationship with your realtor. But yeah, local agents. So I'm getting asked more and more about this area. But if you're already working with an agent, I can't help you.
Yeah, it's a breach of contract for sure.
So if you're contracted with Christina, even though like we're both local, but let's say Christina wasn't local, and you're looking to be in Grand Valley, or you're selling in Grand Valley, and you just want my local connections or advice on local, I cannot talk to you about real estate at all. Yeah. I can't. So I think a lot of people don't fully understand that. And it, to me, I think it is a red light if you're reaching out to other people, like a red flag, I should say, not a red light district.
I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant there.
It is a red flag if you are reaching out to another realtor about stuff. Like, you should be having that conversation with your realtor. Right. And if your realtor isn't able to give you the answers,
it's almost like, why are you asking me? You have and not to be mean at all, because I love helping people, and that's just my nature. Right. Yeah. But you've chosen someone else for a reason. Yeah. So, like, kindly go ask the person.
Yes. Well, and that's, like,
because it's against the law.
Well, yeah, like, I can't, so I tried to educate these people in terms of, like, I cannot, you need to go back to your agent. But I also feel like if you're asking me, you should be asking your agent these things. And if your agent can't provide the answers to these questions,
right there,
maybe they're not a fit. And Christina was doing like a blinking light thing. But it definitely, to me, it's not an immediate, like, try and get out of that contract right away.
No. And we're not ever telling anyone to get out of their contracts to come use that. It's like, that's not, this is complete education purposes.
Yes. You definitely, but I'm a big advocate for like, I would like a conversation too. I want people to treat me as I would treat them. So I would want if I had a client that was reaching out to another agent because they felt like I wasn't giving them answers that they needed about that area or what have you, please come back to me first so that I can either get that answer for you if I don't know it, or, you know, reassess our relationship. Am I really the agent for you now? Maybe you switch your mind about certain things when we first kind of started working together. So I think that's the right way, in my opinion, is to go back to your agent first. If you're reaching out to other agents, it's not cool for the other agent because they then they're put in a tricky situation where they have to say like, I can't help you. And then you're also putting your agent in a tricky position too, because then that other agent's like, you've told me you're working with this agent. Like, I can't answer those questions for you. And that agent maybe feels like you've gone behind their back instead of just having the conversation with them so that they can either, and maybe they have those answers, even if they don't live locally. Maybe they absolutely could have those answers. Yeah. So
communication, it sounds like, is like the biggest piece of that.
Communication is huge with your agent. And then I am a big proponent. If you are looking locally, I think a local agent, interviewing a local agent at minimum is a good idea.
Right.
And it may not be a fit, but at least they may be pointing out some things to you that you might not have thought about with your regular agent that you've been using for years.
Right.
And they might have some questions that they talked about with you that you're like, oh, I got to go back to this agent and double check that they know these things. And then make a well-informed decision from there.
Absolutely.
I find there's a lot of like, you make the decision and then afterwards you're running back to us and like saying, you're a local agent, can I chat with you about that? Like, I can't talk to you about this. You have to go back to your
and
agent.
like, and it is so hard to say, I can't talk to you about this because this is why we're in the business, is to inform people, to educate people.
Yes.
And for us to say, sorry, we can't.
Yes.
Like,
well, and sometimes I don't even realize, like, it takes a little bit in the conversation for me to be like, oh no, you're working with it. Like, I had no idea you were working with an agent. And when I thought we were talking about that, I thought
it was just a conversation.
I thought we were just chatting and I didn't know you were contracted with somebody.
Exactly.
And now I have found out I cannot say anything, you know? So, I think local agents, whatever area you're in, I think at minimum, that would be my advice to at least interview.
Right.
A local, if you haven't already interviewed a local agent, along with your maybe trusted agent that isn't from this area or from the area you're transacting in, interview at least one.
Right.
And to see if there's some things that you maybe didn't think about.
Yeah.
And then also local agents, the last part, and then we have to jump off because we definitely have gone longer than 20. Maybe we have to put like a new bar of 30 minutes for them.
Yeah. But like, also give us feedback. Like, is 30 minutes too long? Do you want to listen to us for 30 minutes? Would you rather it shorter, quick?
Ramble, and then I could like talk super fast and be like, I'm still getting the same information in, but really super fast.
Or we can like write notes to point form us, because right now we're just talking.
We're rambling, yeah. Also with local agents, I just wanted to say too, like, some of them that are servicing the area are very much supporting the area too. So like,
giving
know
back.
for both of us, we give back to the community. We not only with our volunteer hours, but as
we
well,
sponsorships.
That's right. We provide
sponsorships. We provide sponsorships.
We provide our money goes back into the community. Not only just normally transacting in the community to get groceries or what have you, but also actually our dollars to sponsor teams and to help support different initiatives and donations and it all goes back into
giving
the
back
community.
where we can.
So I know for some, if you're leaving the community, you're like, that may not be a consideration, but for some, I would say, you know, consider that as well. Consideration multiple times, but consider that as well, that might be something that, you know, we're giving back to the community as well. And I find a lot of local agents in different centers do the same thing. Like, you'll see the ones
absolutely.
that are focused on living and working in their area. They're definitely,
and it's super obvious.
Yes, like, I feel like it is. Maybe because we're in the industry, but
true.
I feel like it's super obvious. So, yeah, I would say that if you're a local agent listening to this too, welcome. That's great. Like, or you've been maybe here before us. That's great. But it's something that I think that you know, there's enough. You see all the properties listed for sale and the people working with. There's enough that I think people can you know, if your niche or niche is in some area, there's a few agents that represent that area.
Right.
And then there's a few agents that represent different areas. And I think it's important to collaborate.
Find someone,
and then find somebody that is going to be
I'm not as I'm familiar, but not as familiar with the older part of Grand Valley as you are.
Yes.
Where the new area, you ask me anything, and I can.
She knows
the
models,
newer.
She knows.
Yes. So
Yeah, I agree. I think there's different areas that we can bring expertise, and I think just as a consumer, doing your research before, because this is a major transaction, and people your professionals in all parts of it can make big whoopsies that definitely
we're human.
And if you're not working with the one that is a good fit for you, they can cause a lot of communication issues too, right?
For sure.
Yeah. All right, so we got to wrap this up.
Wrap her up.
Yeah, wrap her up. All right, so thank you very much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on another episode.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Yes. All right. Wrapping it up.